What are your challenges in data protection?
Data sprawl, shrinking service level agreements, management complexity,
reducing total cost of ownership,
protection everywhere.
Who do you trust for data protection? Welcome to the session to Modernize Data Protection for the Hybrid Cloud. My name is Cheryl George. I am a technical marketing engineer in product management. I've been at NetApp for over 9 years working on various data protection solutions to enable you protect your enterprise. Children, data protection is just like children. You hope the catastrophe doesn't happen, but you definitely plan for it. Picture what it would be like if your data protection plan covers all aspects of data protection. With hybrid cloud transformation, what you will learn today is understand why you need to protect your data, what the modern data protection requirements are, and how you need to think about data protection of your data fabric for specific workloads like backup, disaster recovery, and business continuity. Let's start with understanding why you need to protect your enterprise data. After a major disaster, more than 40% of businesses are dead in the water. And among those that do stay open, roughly 70% of them close within 2 years. Shocked? You should be. Disasters happen, so does data corruption. In today's constantly connected global business environment, your data protection plan needs to cover varying degrees of events to recover from. Be it unplanned events that can range from disasters to technology failures, human error like accidental deletion, external threats like ransomware, internal threats like rogue administrators, and planned events such as disaster recovery testing, tech refresh, maintenance, etc. Remember, threats are constantly evolving, but the underlying goal of data protection does not change, and it's no secret the importance of disaster preparedness in every organization. Remember, good data protection planning looks at every possible disruption to your business, big or small, including things like strikes that could prevent your workforce from coming to office, because everyone had COVID-19 planned for. Digital transformation is part of everyone's strategic agenda, and information stored digitally can range from financial information, payment details, to contact information, which needs to be secure and protected. Why? To help prevent cyber crimes, breaches, prevent fraud, anything that can hurt your business. To meet compliance requirements, this builds customer trust and loyalty and helps you gain competitive advantage. YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, it's just rainbows and butterflies. Although this data-driven economy has changed the face of digital transformation. You have a host of mission-critical applications catering to specific business needs with data that has now become distributed, stored in multiple locations, on-premise, private cloud, or across multiple clouds. Dynamic, constantly changing data that requires you to know where the data is and its source. Diverse, structured, unstructured, machine learning, streaming, etc. And organizing and orchestrating this data can become increasingly complex. NetApp is the data authority in the hybrid cloud. We're single-minded to innovate to enable our customers thrive with the data protection that is secure, efficient, future-proof, and provide you with freedom of choice. Now let's understand what the modern data protection requirements are. With overwhelming amount and variety of data generated, data protection needs to scale and cover all endpoints in your data fabric. Businesses are driven by reducing service level agreements of recovery point objective and recovery time objective. The conversation now is around RPO and RTO being zero. The persona of an IT admin has evolved from being an IT specialist to an IT operator, and with silos of data protection, managing multiple solutions with multiple interfaces is nearly impossible. Data protection must do more than just protect. What if you could make your secondary data work harder by using it for test dev, DevOps, analytics, etc., to help accelerate business transformation and increase return of investment? Technologies deployed in today's data centers need to integrate into next generation hybrid cloud data center environments so that IT organizations can more readily meet your current and future requirements and remain more relevant to the business at large. How can we simplify and accelerate protection in the hybrid cloud? But what do these requirements mean to you? Backups should be taken during business hours with no penalty on server performance. Protect your applications more frequently, every 15 minutes for example, instead of once a night or once a week. SLAs define what needs to be protected and for how long. Zero recovery point objective RPO to avoid data loss. Zero to near zero recovery time objective RTO for faster recovery of your business critical applications in the case of a disaster. You want Amazon's one-click order experience. Data protection should be that simple, agnostic to the application data sources, and operate seamlessly across virtual and cloud boundaries. Reduce total cost of ownership. Data protection should not come at additional costs, and efficiencies from the storage like thin provisioning, deduplication, and other storage efficiencies at rest and over the wire, compression, encryption, all this should be default. Simple and scalable data-centric innovation to protect data from the data center, which is on-prem, to the best of the cloud, and accelerate digital transformation and future-proof your investments in the data center. Before I dive into data protection capabilities across the hybrid cloud and enable you become a data thriver, it is important to set some context. So let's start at the very beginning, a very good place to start. Effective data protection essentially contains what needs to be protected and for how long. And 3 points are critical. 1, data should be recoverable in the event of a catastrophic failure. 2, data should be replicated and distributed in an optimal way. And 3, the ability for the application to fail over to the secondary copy without application reconnect or user disruption. And since not all data is equal, your data protection strategy will cover protection based on your workload requirements for backup, disaster recovery, and business continuity driven by SLAs. The first step is to identify the metrics of your company. What are these service level agreements? Recovery point objective RPO refers to your company's loss tolerance, the amount of data that can be lost before significant harm to your business occurs. Recovery time objective RTO refers to how much time an application can be down without causing significant damage to your business. It is important to compare traditional data protection with storage-based data protection. Native application uses less efficient streaming backup with performance impact on host, whereas with storage-based protection, you can leverage various technologies that the storage offers, like NetApp snapshot technology to create fast, space-efficient disk-based backups where these snapshot copies are read-only, so they cannot be infected by ransomware. Snap Restore technology for rapid granular restores to any destination in the hybrid cloud. And remember, you can restore from a snapshot copy prior to the infection as well. This enables you to cut backup and restore times of large enterprise data sources from hours to minutes. Imagine you work in a team that uses shared resources for development, testing, or UAT. Contention for resources, dependencies on other team members to get things deployed. All too familiar? NetApp FlexClone technology allows you to create quick, space-efficient clones for test dev purposes to any destination in the hybrid cloud, which means you can test a procedure or software without impacting production resources. In addition, storage efficiencies like thin provisioning, deduplication, compression, and compaction for your data and its snapshot copies. Gone are those days of nightly and weekly backups. You can now take snapshot copies periodically with frequent recovery points to meet shrinking service level agreements. Data protection strategy. Disk to tape used to be the mantra. Now the best practice is the 3-2-1 backup rule. Keep at least 3 copies of your data. Store 2 backup copies on different storage media, with one of them located off-site. NetApp SnapMirror technology enables you to optimally replicate and maintain copies for disaster recovery and long-term retention with data that is encrypted at rest and in transit. Simple and easy policy-based management that allows you to tier your data based on whether it is frequently accessed or not, from the performance tier to the external capacity tier, which can be in the private or public cloud. Thereby helps reduce storage cost without compromising on performance, efficiency, and protection. Now let's put all this into perspective. Backup of a 20 terabyte SAP HANA database takes 4 minutes, while backend takes 2 hours and 30 minutes. You get at least 4 times storage savings for backup, at least 2 times storage savings for clone copies, therefore reduced storage footprint. Faster recovery of your business critical applications in case of a disaster. For example, 16 terabyte database can be restored in less than 15 minutes. For starters, think about what you currently have in your data protection plan. Or do you even have a plan at all? Going forward, you will learn how you need to think about various technologies that you can use for data protection of your data fabric. We'll start with backup and archive as your requirement. Your backup application should be capable of taking application consistent backup. Now, what does that mean? Typically, database applications like Microsoft SQL Server, Microsoft Exchange, etc. write application memory to log files before the contents are committed to the database. When the application data is backed up, it is important that the contents of the memory and any pending writes are completed and captured in the backup. If the contents of the memory are not allowed to be flushed to disk, the backups are called crash consistent backups, which means when the server is recovered from a backup, the database will now have to follow procedures to replay or integrate logs to the data files, further impacting RTO. So an application consistent backup informs the application that a backup is about to take place. And the volume shadow copy service, VSS framework in this case, enables to quiesce the application, flush any pending I/O operations to disk, take a quick snapshot copy, and then thaw the application. Then of course your backup application should be capable to scale to thousands of hosted applications with simple workflows for deployment and protection of these enterprise hosts using fewer clicks. Now the tight integration with storage allows you to leverage all of its capabilities like storage efficiency, clone, replication, encryption, etc. With enterprises adopting the cloud strategy, your backup should be moved to S3 compliant endpoints in the private or the public cloud. Because remember, object storage offers ease of scale to any capacity, ease of access from any location, and flexibility of a pay-as-you-grow model. Let's take NAS backups for example. Network Data Management Protocol (NDMP) has long been the de facto approach for protecting NAS data, originally designed for tape-based backup media. Backups are performed as periodic full backups with intervening incremental backups, and to restore to a specific point in time, NDMP needs to restore the last full backup and then apply all the incremental backups. Now this ability to restore becomes increasingly challenging, labor intensive, and difficult to scale. Inherently inefficient and outdated. Now what if you could detect only change blocks and maintain a file catalog? The benefits would be forever incremental backups. After the initial full backups, no more full backups are required. Block level incremental, only the changed blocks are backed up. Then you can transfer these change blocks to the backup target, so storage efficiencies such as deduplication, compression, etc. are preserved at rest and in transit. Granular file recovery. Backup data can be accessed for analytics and other use cases. In addition, RESTful APIs allow third-party backup partners to incorporate these storage capabilities into their backup solutions. Truly a win-win. The biggest challenge IT organizations face is that each industry has its own regulations that mandate companies to hang on to certain types of information for years. You must not only keep track of this information but also guarantee that this archive information is unaltered and remains accessible during regulatory scrutiny. Because remember, the penalty of not having this is severe. Sometimes as part of the backup rule, a fourth immutable copy for regulatory purposes and to prevent ransomware attacks are being maintained. NetApp SnapLock is a write once, read many offering to reinforce the permanence and integrity of your data so it's unalterable, rapidly accessible, and wonderfully regulator friendly, certified to meet regulatory requirements and addressing corporate mandates including legal hold, event-based retention, and volume append mode. Up until now, I discussed backup, archive, and compliance. Disaster recovery is driven by RPO, where you maintain a secondary copy to which you can failover to continue business operations. What is failover? Failover is the process of transferring mission-critical workloads from your production data center to the secondary disaster recovery location, and this process of failover is manual or can be scripted. NetApp SnapMirror is a cost-effective, easy-to-use replication solution for high data availability and fast data replication of your business-critical applications such as Oracle, Microsoft SQL Server, Microsoft Exchange, etc. in both virtual and traditional environments. You can replicate data at high speeds over LAN or WAN to either secondary storage on-premise or directly to the cloud, or even archive to tape. You can also use SnapMirror to move data at the turn of a lease, consolidate remote offices, or simply set up a new location. The key benefits of replication is that you can reduce bandwidth utilization and storage footprint by leveraging built-in storage efficiencies to accelerate data transfers and reduce network bandwidth utilization by up to 70%. Reduce management overhead through simplified data protection with easy-to-use setup and configuration workflows. Lower your total cost of ownership and accelerate your business by putting your secondary data to active business use and reduce your overall TCO by up to 60%. Manage replication for the data fabric from flash to disk to cloud. Traditionally, a disaster recovery site implied an unused investment that came to life only in the event of a disaster. Now it is a business accelerator that allows you to maximize investments and get the most out of your IT infrastructure. Your enterprise applications can provision and use active workloads on both clusters, with primary workloads served simultaneously on both clusters, with the ability to reuse a secondary facility by creating space-efficient clones that can be used for business intelligence, development, and testing. Let's say you're a bank that requires an exact copy of your data in another site for zero data loss. Synchronous replication technology to synchronously replicate data to achieve zero recovery point objective RPO and low recovery time objective RTO across your data center, LAN or MAN. Synchronous replication technology transmits data immediately to the secondary storage system, producing exact replicas for use in any kind of failure to address the national, regulatory, and industry mandated need in industries such as finance, healthcare, and any other industry that cannot afford any kind of data loss. So how does synchronous replication work to make an exact copy at another storage location? The first step is to create a data protection relationship between the two storage systems. Now your enterprise application write IO is sent to the primary storage system, and this write IO is simultaneously sent to the secondary storage system. The secondary storage system returns an acknowledgement which can be a success or a failure. If it is a success on both your primary and secondary storage systems, the enterprise application receives a positive acknowledgement and the writes are committed. And if necessary, you can choose for the application to fail over to the secondary, and this is a manual or scripted process. Now what you need to be clear about is that synchronous replication is bound by round trip time, RTT, which has to be less than 10 milliseconds, because otherwise the application will wait indefinitely for the secondary acknowledgement that can result in increased application latency. So to give you a glimpse of how disaster recovery procedure will work in your enterprise, you would have a data protection relationship created between the peer clusters. And under normal operations, the application will send IO to the primary data center. When an event occurs, this can range from failure of the volume, storage, system, or site. Failover is the process of transferring mission-critical workloads from the production data center to the secondary disaster recovery location. Failover strategy is an integral part of an effective data protection plan, and you need to be familiar with the order in which you bring back your business as quickly as possible. So what will be your road to recovery? You will have to quiesce the existing relationship to disable future transfers, then break the relationship, which will now make the DR volumes read-write. Then mount these read-write volumes from the DR site to the application host. Now the application host can continue operations to the DR volumes. Remember, the failover is manual or can be scripted. When your primary system comes back online, you can create a data protection relationship in the reverse direction so that you can resync only the delta back to the original source. Once the resync completes, you can halt the I/O going to the disaster recovery site and choose to perform a planned failback to restore operations to the original source. Now that we understand disaster recovery, it is important to differentiate from business continuity. You have the option to leverage a combination of replication technologies to achieve zero data loss and geographic dispersion. In a fan-out topology, two data centers are located close to one another will synchronously replicate data between themselves to achieve zero RPO, and geographic dispersion with data asynchronously replicated to a third site located outside the region defined by the other two. Depending on the kind of disaster that strikes your primary site, the application can be started from the near disaster recovery data center or the far disaster recovery site. Upon failover to the near disaster recovery site, you have the option to perform only a delta resync of the changes that have occurred from your near DR site to the far DR site. Cascade topology is where the primary would synchronously replicate to a near disaster recovery site, and the near disaster recovery site would asynchronously replicate to a far disaster recovery site. In case the near disaster recovery site goes down, you can configure an asynchronous replication directly to the far disaster recovery site over long distance to ensure all the delta updates are being replicated from the primary to the far disaster recovery site. Here also, depending on the kind of disaster that strikes the primary site, you can choose for the application to be started from the near disaster recovery data center or the far disaster recovery site. The key requirements for business continuity are the capability to restore host access to the secondary copy immediately, guarantee zero data loss, which is enabled by synchronous replication. What level of continuous availability do you require? Is it at the infrastructure level or the application level? Continuous availability can be made available at the storage infrastructure level, which means there will be two storage clusters synchronously replicating data. When the primary goes offline, the third-party mediator orchestrates the automated failover of all enterprise applications to the secondary data center, and this operation is seamless to the application. Whereas if you want application granularity, where you have the flexibility to cherry pick which application you want to be made continuously available, and in this case to ensure snapshot consistency for the application data spanning across volumes, the consistency group helps maintain dependent write order consistency. You can get continuous availability whether it is deployed within a data center, at a different location in a building or campus, or across citywide or metro-wide deployments. Now, the underlying technology for business continuity is synchronous replication, ideal for maintaining data access within the data center, across campus, or a metro area following an event. You can extend this to a multi-target deployment by combining business continuity with disaster recovery solutions to replicate data asynchronously across the globe. So to summarize and tie it back to your data protection requirements, tight integration with storage enables application consistent backups taken in a matter of minutes during business hours with no penalty on server performance. You can either asynchronously or synchronously replicate data or backups to your secondary data center for the purpose of disaster recovery, or archive your backups to the S3 object storage in a private or public cloud. Additionally, create secondary value using instantaneous clones for analytics or test dev purposes. Create immutable copy of your data for regulatory compliance purposes, and continuous availability with automated failover either at the application level granularity or storage infrastructure level. Optionally, tier your cold data to an external tier, which can be in the private or the public cloud. Now remember, you get consistent data protection across your data fabric as defined in your data protection strategy. Your call to action: get the conversation started about your data protection plan, which will contain inventory of what you have in your enterprise, classify your servers, storage, and network with respective SLAs. Your data protection strategy with a myriad technologies to suit those needs, all the risks that could affect your business, and actions to prepare for or respond to the situations identified. The plan itself needs to be well written with protocols outlined, process and procedures to return normal service, responsibilities identified, and personnel to carry out recovery procedures when disaster strikes. Create a robust plan and periodically carry out procedures of failover and failback. That way you can assess and amend with changes and reset SLA expectations with stakeholders as well. You can rise to the occasion provided you practice. The key takeaways are: devise effective data protection strategy driven by RTO defined by your business. Leverage myriad data protection solutions since not all data is equal. And remember, data protection should be as simple as 1, 2, 3, go. Easy for the IT operator, consistent across your data fabric, and protect data everywhere in your hybrid cloud. Data protection is just like children. You plan for it.